Well, for more on the escalation between Russia and Ukraine, we're joined on set here by the former CENTCOM spokesperson, retired Army Colonel Joe Buccino. Joe, thanks for being here. I suppose you're glad you don't have your old job right now. These are tough times. Let me first let you weigh in on what seems to be clear escalation, whatever you call it.
It's a clear escalation here. I think it was an escalation that was not necessary. This didn't really need to happen. I think providing the ATACMS to Ukraine, allowing Ukraine to fire ATACMS into Russia was not necessary. They've got a few dozen ATACMS. It's really not enough to strengthen their foothold in Kursk. It's really not enough to change the momentum on the battlefield. And I think in this transition period, transition periods are traditionally not a time to make significant changes in these kinds of geopolitical issues. And I think it's a little bit confusing what's happening here, and I think it makes all this a little bit less stable than it was.
Joe Rogan and others have pointed out, but Joe Rogan yesterday was saying that this leads to possibly World War III. What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, the great foreign policy advisor Joe Rogan. I think he's right in this sense. I call this a limited global war. What I mean by that is it's limited to one specific part of the earth, it's limited to one region, right? But you've got global coalitions on either side. On the Russia side, you've got Iran, you've got China supporting Russia, you've got North Korea. Now you've got 11,000 North Korean troops in the fight. Mm-hmm. On the other side, you've got a global coalition around Ukraine, United States, European countries. So you've got a limited global war. Now, you've introduced the ATACMS, right? So you're climbing that escalation ladder. You've introduced this new weapon that Russia is firing. You climb the escalation ladder. I'd be afraid of keep climbing that escalation ladder and you trip into a World War III.
A nuclear one. I mean, that's Putin's point, is saying these are hypersonic ballistic missiles that are nuclear capable. So we'll fire it the first time without the nuke. Maybe the nuke comes next time. Now, he's threatened the nuke thing before, but do you see that as an escalation within itself?
Just the messaging is an escalation, but just think about this. Say that Putin makes good on his threat to fire into the U.S. base in Poland without a nuclear warhead and kills America after it kills American troops. Well, we're in a different place now. We're in a different, now you're really on glide path towards World War III.
A dangerous place.
A dangerous place, yeah.
Let's talk about incoming. President-elect Trump has said multiple times, or David Spillane at the White House is reporting, Trump has repeatedly said he can solve this in one day, the war in Ukraine. What do you make of that?
Well, I think that he's always been of the mind that there's a peace deal to be brokered here, that he can bring this down and get both sides to agree to some sort of a compromise. The Trump foreign policy has always really been about the idea that we're no longer going to fund these kinds of wars. We're no longer going to offset or pay out wars for our partners and allies. And so I think, reducing the funding, developing some kind of a frozen conflict where Russia keeps some of the territory it's claimed, perhaps.
Which Zelensky says he won't do. But perhaps there's a carrot and a stick situation with Zelensky where the United States, proffers them to join NATO. The Washington Post editorial board said that if Trump abandons Ukraine, it will be akin to something like Afghanistan under Biden. What do you make of it?
Those situations are not parallel. That doesn't fully make sense to me. We had American troops in Afghanistan that we withdrew. We had partners that did risk their lives to support American troops for 20 years. We don't have American troops in Ukraine. We've been funding this war. We've been funding Ukraine now for 33 months. And, with limited gain. Obviously there was a stunning success in the beginning with Ukraine holding the line. And then, the kind of momentum never shifted back to Ukraine after the Russian counteroffensive. But do you see their point, and it's not just the Washington Post, it's others that have said that, if
Trump were to fully abandon Ukraine and quickly, it would make America weaker and embolden dictators like Putin.
It depends on how a peace deal is brokered. It really would depend on what that would look like, what the messaging is, what's provided on both sides, and I really wouldn't want to kind of speculate too much on that, but I'd imagine that if there's a peace deal brokered whereby, both sides come away with some sort of messaging win, some sort of messaging success, that you could really have a kind of messaging win for the United States across the world as well. At a certain point, you're kind of throwing money at this war without much gain. So.
In the last 10 seconds I got, do you have a messaging advice for the incoming Trump administration on how they handle this?
What I would say is that there has to be a gain. There has to be a win for Zelensky, some sort of success that Zelensky can point to internally to Ukraine and to the rest of Europe.
Joe Buccino, retired Army Colonel, thank you for your insight as always. We'll have you back as this starts to come into play.
Anytime.
Molly?